What if Sanctuary wasn't just a place, but a way of living? Welcome to the Sanctuary Network, your weekly home for conversations that awaken the heart, heal the body, and inspire the spirit. I'm your host, Mary Ellen Popyk, the creator of Spirit Fest and the Natural Wellness Expos. For 2 decades, I've been creating spaces, now creating a bold new broadcast for mind, body, and spirit, where seekers, healers, and teachers come together to share wisdom, laughter, and transformation. We've seen what happens when communities gather. People become enlivened. Now, through the Sanctuary Network, that same spirit is reaching you, wherever you are in the world. Each week, we'll sit down with thought leaders, authors, and everyday visionaries. We'll also shine a light on the grassroots voices of the Sanctuary Marketplace, the healers, vendors, and practitioners who make this movement thrive. This isn't just another show, it's your sanctuary, a space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with what matters most. So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and join me. Together, let's step into the sanctuary. Welcome everyone to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit. We have got some really strong women here tonight, and we are going to have some really interesting and fun conversation. The title of the show, and I'm just going to say it, I edited it a little bit for the social media, Boss Bitch, like it's a bad thing. I take it as a compliment. And I thought I've heard it enough that it would be timely to have a conversation about whether it is a compliment or whether it's not. And we're going to discuss sort of where that term comes about, maybe look at some of the stigmas that are associated with that and why perhaps women are sometimes perceived differently than men in business. So I'd like to introduce, before we get started, thank you ladies for being here, our first guest, Mindy DiPietro. Did I say that right?
You did. Thanks.
Good, thank you. She has helped establish experts turn 15 years of lived expertise into a brand and business that's entirely their own. She's an expert on intellectual property, sovereign wealth, and building something that outlasts your current role. She is the CEO at Aesthetic Treatment Centers in Naples, Florida, where she's led the development and execution of the spa's business strategy and ever-growing business. So you've got a lot to lend. It sounds like that you've got a lot of experience. So thank you very much for being here. And Susan Williams is an entrepreneur, business leader, and owner of My Enchanted Path. Over the course of a 30-year career, so I'm pretty sure she started working when she was 4 or 5. Yep. She has led teams ranging from 5 employees to more than 650, managed multi-million-dollar operations, and built a reputation for driving results through accountability, adaptability, and a willingness to challenge conventional thinking. So thank you, Susan, for joining us as well. Mindy, I didn't note on your intro the management course that you present to people. Is $1 Million Wealth? Was that what it was?
$1 Million Brand Accelerator, yes. And I am no longer the owner of Aesthetic Treatment Centers.
Okay.
And that's how I got into helping other people build their businesses.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's a good trajectory. So we've talked a little bit about, do you guys have any examples? I definitely have some where I feel like maybe I need to be a certain way, or I've been perceived in a way that maybe I didn't, going along with the topics that we're talking about. Susan, do you have any examples over your career where you have been perceived not how you expected?
I think there's 2 great examples I can give you. And the first one is I worked in the security industry for a long time, and that's physical security with armed security officers running security for music festivals. And it was far and few between to see women in a leadership position there, which is very male dominated. I just don't think they expect that I'd have a strong mind. I'd be outspoken and hold firm to safety and strategies throughout the event. So definitely in that space, they just didn't know what to expect from me. Yeah, we'll go with that.
I remember you were sharing a story where they were surprised when they met you that you're very analytical minded. and
Oh, sure,
yeah.
sure. Somebody was helping me at an event doing setup, and I'm very process driven, very much A, B, C, very Virgo, very, very Virgo. So my mind is sort of robotic, and that's what they said to me. They said they didn't expect that of me, that I thought in a very process driven, very robotic way. And I took a step back. I'm like, okay, so that's how they see me. And I'm inside a fluffy bunny full of rainbows and butterflies, but very process driven. So I kind of changed my approach a little bit. So they didn't feel like, they were working with like a block of ice.
Do you think that that perceived how they communicated with you afterwards?
That particular situation, I actually brought it up to them maybe a week later. And I said, that comment that you shared with me that I was robotic, it kind of impacted me because I never want to be received as cold or, just, unconnected or not connected to the people that I'm working with. And they nicely actually reframed it as they appreciated it. So, they liked how I was direct and very clean with what I was saying. But yeah.
Mhm. Mindy, have you had any experiences like that? And then I'm also going to ask, when you're doing your coaching, does anything like this ever come up?
It really does. And I am a manifesting generator in human design, which means I have done a lot of different things. They all kind of follow the same path, but I've worked with a lot of different kinds of people. I've worked with a lot of physicians, both male and female. And I started my career as a speech pathologist. And I realized when I got into the workforce in the school system that I was definitely the first generation, probably all of us are, the first generation of women who really were starting to be perceived as equals in the workplace.
Hmm.
So the women that I worked for were tough. They
Hmm.
were really tough because they had to really fight their way through. I know I had a principal who I loved, but she was so tough. And she just felt like she couldn't let her guard down because she needed to be perceived as strong as the rest of the male administrators because they were by far mostly male at that time, which is interesting because in the school system, most of the workforce is female. And
Hmm.
at that time, most of the administration was male.
Mm.
So there was a big dichotomy there. And I came to Naples in 1988. I was young. I was a single mom. I had just gotten out of school. And so I had to learn to just deal with it and figure it out whenever I was presented with that. And I think it served me well to just kind of ignore it because when I ignored it, I think there's a lot of power in feeling a little bit or being perceived a little underestimated.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of power in that because when you're underestimated, the expectations are low. So when you perform, it almost seems a little bit higher than it is. So that's how I worked with it early in my career. And I bumped up against it in a lot of management situations. I worked for a lot of business owners, or really with, because I helped them build medical spas, worked with physicians, business owners. And the perception is, whoever brings the money is the boss. It doesn't matter if they know anything about the subject matter or they don't. And, when they weren't getting, when they weren't getting that agreement, they could be a little bit aggressive.
Hmm.
But I really think, communication skills, stay calm, stay in control, say what you need to say kind of in that broken record kind of voice, just say the same thing over and over in a calm tone. And in my experience, it has seemed to really help with that. But there are really always funny situations that come up. In that I had a man stand up in a meeting with his hands on the table and standing in front of me, and I was kind of surprised. So I just stood up and kept talking to him, and
Hmm.
the situation was neutralized. But you know, what are you going to do? You can't just sit there and let someone yell at you, right?
Oh, right, right. You brought up an interesting word though, about being aggressive. I'm interested in the perception about the difference between assertive and aggressive. Do you guys have any feelings about that, Susan?
Yeah, for me, assertive is how I would be assertive would be considering what needs to take place, what's the best measure, what needs to be communicated, and for the benefit of the vision or the goal. And being aggressive is not taking into consideration anybody else in the room, any other
Mm.
guidelines, any other factors, and just, inserting myself above all else.
Mindy, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's really true. I mean, being assertive is having your convictions in the school system. That conviction was, I don't work there anymore. I'm not good in bureaucracies. I worked there about 12 years and I was gone. But being assertive to me was trying to get my students, who are usually pretty severe, the services they need. And you're basically fighting, federal guidelines, you're fighting state and, school system guidelines, but you really want that child to get the services they need.
Hmm.
So I felt like if I'm coming from the right place and I have the right convictions and people understand my convictions, it doesn't, my perceived wanting to get my way in the situation was always perceived as, doing the best thing for the child. So, I
Hmm.
mean, being aggressive is just demanding your way again. And, you put it so well, Susan, not taking anyone else into consideration and just getting your way. And as a boss owning my own businesses, this has definitely been an area for growth for me.
Hmm.
Because where's the line? Anytime there was a situation like that, it was almost always about boundaries, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It was about me not setting the proper boundary, me not holding the proper boundary, um, and and me sometimes being too busy to stop and explain to the employee. And in this case, I don't think it matters if it's women or men. I mean, I think women can be just as have a perception about the gender of their boss, right? At
Hmm.
times.
Hmm.
So it was really about me not holding the proper boundary, not taking the time to say something correctly, and that's how those misunderstandings came in. And I'm sure I heard the B word whispered not so quietly under people's breath many times. But you live and learn, and you go through iterations of your businesses, and try not to take it personally.
Mhm.
Right. The first time that I heard the term was on Ted Lasso. Have you ever watched it, Susan? I don't think you have. Have
The Ted
Mindy?
Uh-uh.
Lasso, I've watched all of it. It was
Oh, you
fantastic.
watched Ted Lasso? I
I
love
did.
Rebecca, and that when that little girl calls her out like that, it's just she's just such a powerhouse, and I just love her. Highly recommend. But we talked about times where have we been perceived differently, and I manage. I run the company. Sorry, I run the business, and then also I have to run the shows. And in running the business, I do my best to be patient and really, one on one, really explain things to people. I'm also very cut and dry. But at the shows, a lot of times I feel like I'm not really taken seriously. And I wonder if I was a man, if people would, when I say some things, if I would be perceived differently. That sometimes I feel like when I say this is how it needs to be, it's more of a suggestion than a direction. And I feel like that's when I might get more aggressive, is when I don't feel like people are listening, because I don't feel like if I do it any other way that they're going to listen, that they're going to take me seriously. And these are about things like about space or safety things, or things like that. So
Yeah.
I also kind of try to find that balance a little bit.
But
Um,
Mary Ellen, there's also the effect that you have on the vendors of like when you go to their booth to say hello and they're like, "Am I in trouble?" So
yeah,
they
I
know that
know.
you're a person of authority. They absolutely do. It's just maybe it's uh, the the thing that you're addressing that gives them the idea, oh no, I can do it over there at that event. So here, I'm not going to listen to Mary Ellen. She's just whatever. She's
Yeah.
only the show owner, whatever.
Oh, and we've got so many stories to tell too about the things people try and do. But
Yeah.
that would be an example about, when I maybe become a little bit more forward than I feel like that I want to be. And I don't know, because there's a lot of men that are warm and fuzzy too. Like there are men owners that would go around and talk to people at the booths or things like that. So, part of that is just again the stigma of that. So, one of the things, Mindy, that we talked about before the show was about the hidden cost of dimming your voice. So, can you speak to with women about, would you call it being assertive, or would you just call it using your voice, or what do you really, how do you explain that?
I would just call it doing their job, right, to the best of their ability and not letting other people's perceptions interfere with that. And, I work in my business coaching a lot with human design and the voice center. I'm going to be doing a course on your voice by design.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
because everyone is meant to communicate in a different way. And if you're trying to force yourself to communicate in a way that's unnatural to you, it can come
Hmm.
off as either insecure, it
Hmm.
can come off as unsure of your subject matter, and it can come off sometimes either too soft or too hard, too
Hmm.
aggressive or whatever it is. But I do think that the cost of that, it costs them visibility. If you don't speak up in a meeting, it costs you visibility. It changes your income. It changes your ability to be promoted. It
Hmm.
changes the perception of your coworkers.
Hmm.
So if you let that creep in, and if you let that, I think if there are any people out there, but particularly women, if there are any women out there who are having trouble finding that balance, it's so important to do it. And it's important to do it early because it really will affect your income over time.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. The leadership traits too, I feel like, do you feel like that there's a same standard for women that there are for men? Do either of you have a thoughts
The
about that?
standard's different in a lot of ways. The standard's different in how you should dress. The standard's different in how you should think. And I think that tone of voice, when women get stressed, their pitch goes up
Hmm. Hmm.
and people stop listening to you. And all of us here kind of work with energetics in one way or another, right?
Hmm.
So learning to control your HRV or understand your heart rate variability can
Hmm.
help with that if you're
Hmm.
having trouble. And being confident in the workplace takes practice. It's a skill. It's not a personality trait.
Hmm.
So you can practice that skill and just practicing speaking up when you don't feel like it sometimes and practicing being, insisting that you're in the right room, insisting that you're part of the decision-making process.
Hmm.
All of these things are really important. And, little by little, you develop that confidence.
Yeah.
And
I've always
you,
said you can say something people don't want to hear and say it nice, because
you can,
it's just business.
right. But it can also come off as too nice.
Yes.
If it
Yes.
comes off as too nice, you also might not be taken really seriously, right? So
Yes.
so you have to find that balance and it's really practice finding that balance. And I do so encourage anybody who's in the workplace, if you feel like there's a little balance of power, you're working with people who are more experienced than you, older than you, more assertive than you, then seek help with that.
Hmm.
I help with it. I'm sure a bunch of other coaches help with it.
Hmm.
Because if you can get that down early on, and if you can make what you say match how you feel, people respect you more.
Susan, what are your thoughts?
I just wanted to share a story that when I spoke up about a challenge, I was working in a reasonably well-known catering food company, and it was holiday prep, and I was in the weeds. I was behind. I needed help. It was my first holiday season with this company, and I wasn't sure how to troubleshoot my way out of what was going on. So my district manager calls to check in, and I said, "Hey, this is what's happening, and I'm behind on my production. I've got to get to this number. This is where I'm going, and I'm just having challenges." And he said a few things, shared some tips. I worked my booty off to try to make changes. Hour and a half later, he shows up and he said, "Susan, you didn't tell me how bad it was." And I said, "I told you I was having trouble. I told you that my numbers weren't hitting the goals that I needed to fulfill what I needed for the day and for the weekend." He's like, "Yeah, but you weren't freaking out." And I'm like, "I needed to freak out? Like, what do you mean I needed to freak out?" Like, I wasn't yelling. I wasn't raising my voice. I wasn't flailing. I don't know. I wasn't presenting myself in a hysterical manner that I guess he expected from his female general manager. I'm like, I
Hmm.
presented the issues. I told him my
Hmm.
I was just taken aback. I was like, I don't react like that. I'm very calm under pressure. I work very well in that space. So I was just, like I said, I was just very surprised that I needed to freak out for him to hear me.
So I'm wondering how many male managers freak out.
I don't know.
Do
I
you
think they
guys,
freak out in different ways.
well, and
What's
that's
that?
what I was thinking because I've worked with men before, and usually the more stressful it gets, the more four-letter words get dropped.
Yeah.
Right.
Quite easily, as a matter of fact, too. So I'm not sure really what would consider freaking out, but that's when I would get more loud and just
Yeah.
more to the point. Was just, as things are getting more serious. That's just my way of doing that, I guess. And I don't know if men would come across more scary or more authoritative or what really the difference would be. But we all have our different management styles. What were you going to say, Susan?
And I think that's just it. I think it's not necessarily here a gendered response. It's about your management style. Because I've worked for probably equal number women and men, and the women tend to. I mean, I've seen them get loud and get crazy, just like I've seen men. The men were a little, like you said, use more colorful language. And the women kind of like buckle down and focus. Okay, what are we doing here? Let's figure it out. Um, but about equal on each side. Freak
Right,
out calm.
right. Do you guys have any examples of managers that you've had that were either really good or really not good? I am thinking of some of when I worked at Disney, when I very first started, I worked in more of a corporate type situation. And I remember there was some female managers that were not warm and fuzzy at all, and they were actually really scary.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of some men that were that way, and I really can't, interestingly enough. So again, I think it might be about perception. But Mindy, have you had managers that you've either really looked up to or that you really did not ever want to be like?
Well, since my career has taken, a not a really super linear path, I've had different managers, and in different industries, they are very different. So, you know, physicians, when they are managing you, are often very short and curt, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that just comes from they're in the operating room, they have a more scientific mind, they have the perception that they're responsible for everything.
Hmm.
So they'll
Hmm.
kind of bark an order and move on.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, wait a second, I need a little more information on that.
Hmm.
And I've had most of the people who have managed me, I have liked, I've liked traits that they've had or traits that they haven't had. And I think the biggest difference was in their reactiveness to situations. So, I've had female and male managers who are like super reactive, and I can't say that I didn't act like that at times when I was managing, being reactive to a situation, especially in like the health and wellness industry, when something's going on, it has to be fixed right away. So everything is just out of your mind and you're just focused on that problem, right?
Right.
And so I I did really appreciate those managers that I had that were more steady,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they just had a demeanor that was a little more even killed. And I do think, sometimes men are perceived that way more than women because we're
Mm-hmm.
emotional, we're caretakers, when an employee could be driving us crazy and we're telling them the same thing the 10,000th time, we're still trying to explain it and we're still trying to,
Mm-hmm.
help
Right.
them. And I do have a lot of friends in business who are CEOs and that kind of thing. And the one says, Mindy, hire slower, fire faster. And
Oh, yeah.
that's just me not keeping a boundary, right? I explained a million times over and over to the same employees to the point that I drove myself crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that wasn't the best way for me to be a manager and take into account, or a founder or a
Mm-hmm.
CEO, whatever I was at the moment, and to take into account um, what
So
was happening and how the problem got solved.
we've got just a few minutes till break. So Susan, when we come back, I'm going to ask you to talk about your most and your least favorite managers that you've had over the years. But first of all, tell us where people can find you, Susan.
I can be found at myenchantedpath.com, where I make charming items for an enchanted life.
You'll find her at Spirit Fest also. And you can find a full list of our Spirit Fest shows at spiritfestusa.com. And, excuse me. And Mindy, where is the best place for people to find you?
They can find me on Instagram at $1 Million Brand Accelerator,
Mhm.
and they can find me on Substack. Right now, I'm loving Substack.
On Substack, yes. And if you are on the Transformation Network, both of our ladies have guest profiles on there, and you can find their websites and all of their links as well. So, all right, well, we will be right back after just a few breaks. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us.
Hi, I'm Susan from My Enchanted Path, where I create divinely guided candles, intention oils, soaps, and more that make spiritual practice simple, no complicated rituals. The names may be playful, but every product is serious about helping you shift your energy. All fragrances are clean and safe, free from major toxins no one wants in their home or on their skin. With a 5-star rating and over 100,000 customers, myenchantedpath.com is a trusted source for charming items for an enchanted life.
Experience the healing magic of the Himalayas. Tibetan singing bowl classes and sessions are available at Kopali Inputs, which is located at downtown St. Petersburg, Florida.
Florida has a great new option for healthy living. Our Natural Health Expos were a hit last year, so 2026 brings more events around Florida. This special event offers health and wellness opportunities for people and pets. High-quality experts in well-being, healing, anti-aging, and natural living. Plus, you'll find speakers, demonstrations, and much more. All details, lists of locations, and discounted admission can be found at naturalwellnessexpo.com. Join us for Spirit Fest, coming soon to a city near you. Spirit Fest is a metaphysical, holistic, and crystal expo featuring an amazing array of vendors, speakers, authors, artists, crystals, healers, psychic readers, and more. Spirit Fest is your chance to explore and connect with others of like mind. Get all details, including our upcoming locations up and down the East Coast, also discounted admission, and more at spiritfestusa.com. Our next event is January 10th and 11th with special guests and special presentations, including psychic explorer, medium Mark Anthony, and also historical researcher, explorer, and author Jim Vieira. More details are coming to our website soon, and we look forward to seeing you at Spirit Fest in 2026. Welcome back to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit, everyone. We are having a discussion today about being a boss bitch, like it's a bad thing. As we know, women are sometimes perceived a little bit differently than men in business. Sometimes when women are strong and dominant, they're often perceived as intimidating or cold. When men display the same qualities, sometimes they're perceived as shrewd or driven businessmen. So we're discussing the different perceptions and how we want to be perceived in business as women. So I'm here with Mindy DiPietro and Susan Williams, and we were talking about management styles. So Susan, in your experience when you've been working for other people, what are some management role models that you might have had that you either did not want to be like or that you did want to be like?
Yeah, sure. So there are a few that really stand out in my mind. And one of the first female, she wasn't a boss, but she was like, we were peers, but kind of different divisions. She had a way of seeing people, understanding what they brought to the table, their what they were capable of. It's like she really understood them. And I remembered one day I said to her, I said, I really wish that I could hone that skill that you have. Over the years, I learned that leading with my intuition and really listening, and my natural intuition kind of helped me with that. But just watching her take like a motley crew of staff and achieve such great things really blew my mind. Um, Later in my career, there was a woman that I worked with. She was in the vice president capacity. She was cold and calculated. She gave you very little information. She was very tough to work with because I don't need to be managed or talked to in a light, soft, coddled kind of way, but I need a little bit more information than do this thing by this deadline, or that's, or you're out. A
Mm-hmm.
very hard kind of way of communicating. And it just shattered a lot of the ranks. There was a lot of people that fell out because her management style just wasn't great. There was another gentleman that I worked with that it was so warm, such a great family man. He really connected to the individuals, it made everybody feel like they were also part of the family, like part of his family.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was surprised, and what ultimately led me to leave the company was that's not who he was behind the scenes. And me in that company, I was in a human resources role, and I had to enforce the company policies. It made it very uncomfortable for me to have to do things on behalf of the company that were morally, ethically wrong.
Uh-huh.
It just felt so uncomfortable. Like, we're going to promote this person for this criteria and fire this person on the same criteria. And
Right.
I could not work in that space. I learned a lot. I was very appreciative of him, but ultimately the first person that I mentioned really helped me develop the ability to look at this person and see them and understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Those three people really stand out to me. Then I had somebody that was another peer that she was brutally honest. She was the sweetest thing, kind of abrasive, but people loved her. Like, she would get the job done, and I would just see how
You don't need to talk about me like this. I'm sitting right here.
Yes. She was just the greatest person to work with, and people didn't get her. But I got her, and I'm forever grateful that I was able to see just how she worked with the customers and employees and getting things done.
Mm-hmm. Something that occurred to me when we're talking about how you were learning to kind of analyze people's skills, weaknesses for what you're talking about, the role that intuition plays with women in leadership. I believe men have really good intuition too. They have good perception, but women really have a refined sense of intuition. So, how does intuition, Mindy, play with how you lead?
I think intuition is super important. And whenever I've gotten into trouble, it's usually because I have just overridden my own intuition, right? So I think training yourself to pay attention to those gut feelings or whatever it happens to be,
Hmm.
training yourself to when you don't feel you're making the right decision or you're not sure, sleep on it.
Hmm.
Don't
Hmm.
be forced into making that decision right away. And I think when we get to the point where we're leaders in whatever industry it is, then we need to help develop the intuitive skills, the intuitive business skills of our new people and the people who are coming up. And I think it's those skills aren't rewarded in the workplace.
Hmm.
And I think we need to reward that. In the
Hmm.
health and wellness business, we probably do prioritize that a little bit higher than in other kinds of businesses.
Hmm.
And I think that's a leadership skill we all need to pay attention to.
Susan, one of the things that you sell in your business basically is ways for people to be more intuitive and sort of use the sixth sense things. But so talk about not just your corporate experience, but how you use that in your business now.
Oh, how I use it in my business now. So that's hard for me to say without um, I'm reading people all day long when I'm working with them as customers. Um, when somebody asks me for a product for a certain symptom, right? Oh, my third eye is blocked. I have my intuition is not on. My throat chakra is blocked. I just can't find the words. So there's usually a secondary. There's something behind the scenes that's blocking that. Is it
Hmm.
fear? Is it courage that you really have to work on? Is that the root of it? So I just asked the question behind the question. I read a book by that title a million years ago, and it just kind of stuck with me. Um, but I asked questions and I to find out really the root cause.
Hmm.
Intuitively, I just go through the feel of things. I'll tell you a business-based intuition, intuitive judgment that I made. This is back in the corporate space. There was one of the business owner. It was a major clothing brand. The business owner was doing a tour of stores and he asked my decision on why I was visual merchandising, brand management, why I made some decisions the way that I did. And I said, well, he asked me, why is your bestseller way back there? And I said, because then all the people have to walk by it, all these other things to get to what we know they're going to buy anyway. Why you're going to put it on the front table so they can pick up that thing and leave.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he appreciated that. It was an intuitive movement. I'm sure there's retail management strategies out there that say that, but at the time, which was about 20 years ago, um, I didn't know of that, but it was an intuitive move.
Hmm.
So
Mindy, you do a lot of work with the eWomen's Network down in Southwest Florida. Do
I
you
do.
think that because you work with a lot of women, do you think women are inherently more intuitive than men?
Um, I would say women are more likely to listen to their intuition. And, from my speech pathology days, the brain, the hemispheres of the brain in women are more connected. So the connective tissue in the middle, which is called the corpus callosum, is thicker in women. So we are much more easily working between the halves of our brain than men are.
Hmm.
So there is some biology to that. And I also think women, I learned to follow my intuition from my grandmothers.
Hmm.
And and I don't think that my brothers were necessarily taught to look at things in the same way.
Hmm.
And so I think there's a lot. eWomen Network is very special because there are a lot of special women in there.
Hmm.
They already arrive with qualities that are, I think, that have helped them advance in their careers. So they come with knowing themselves a little more, and they come with being open to meeting other people more.
Hmm.
So I really feel when I left my business, I was kind of over it. It was after COVID. Um, I'm not as young as I used to be. I don't want that kind of liability of owning a medical business anymore. And I decided to go out on my own. It was super lonely.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
sat at my computer. I learned my craft here like it was a master's degree, and I have as many hours at least into it. So I was really lonely because I was and I didn't even know I was lonely. But when I met these people at eWomen Network and I started talking to Lainey, I'm like, I was getting dressed up to go to the meeting, and I was telling my fiance, I know I'm just going to meet friends there.
Aw.
I'm back in this like environment where there are supportive women. So
Yeah.
I really do love that. Again, they're super special, and I think they are a little bit more intuitive.
And I'm glad you were at Spirit Fest Fort Myers the last week, because it's very much like a supportive family there too.
It is.
Whether you are just starting, but people are just willing to help each other, and they're true community, and that is something that's really great, men, women. And we talked about, our men, I feel like are more analytical, women. I say emotional, and I just mean maybe more intuitive, that maybe they just go more with the right side of the brain. But that's why I feel like men and women work really well together, because, we all have our different weaknesses and strengths. So, and as a whole, I just think there's no right or wrong way to do anything. But that's what's interesting, is it's maybe other people's perception of management styles, or about, why a strong woman or a successful woman in business, oh, she must have done this and this and this to be able to get there, instead of, no, maybe she's
Right.
really brilliant and she works really hard. So at Spirit Fest, we have a lot of different vendors, I'll say, and they've all created their own businesses at some point. And we've seen people do fundraisers to be able to afford their first booth. And then I love watching the trajectory, of how they've gotten to where they are. And I'm wondering if you guys have noticed, and again, based on your experience with what you're doing right now, and then also your experience back with the corporate world, do you see anything with the different ages of people, the different generations, some of the people that are now in their early 20s that are working, that are making their own businesses or getting into leadership skills, compared to people of a certain age, which, I grew up at a time where women did not earn, I say grew up, I was young, but women did not earn the same as men. Women still wore girdles when I was, able to form
Right.
for my perceptions about things. So I'm interested to know what you guys are thinking about that. So Susan, let's start with you.
So I haven't had a staff of my own since COVID, since 2020, which has been great. So I've been solo, just me, not having to deal with managing people and learning new styles. But what I did experience, and just before I left the corporate space, was the work ethic was very different across the board with the younger group. Like when I was 20, 22, 23, 25, I worked. I paid attention in class. Like I did what the boss needed. I did not call out. I showed up. I worked. And it seemed like now it's just, there's so many jobs and there's so many opportunities, and it's very entrepreneurial, which is great. They're going to go run their own business. They're going to go do hair. They're going to, whatever they want to do. But there's definitely not a corporate loyalty mindset anymore. There is no, that I can see, a career mindset. Over the years, yeah, I've definitely seen a difference in, just older I've gotten, the less dependable, that sounds bad, that people can be, the less, driven they are to do what's right. And I'll say, I remember one time I said to somebody, well, you asked all these favors of your boss and they did what you needed. And it was a 40th age range. And then the boss came to them and said, hey, I need a favor from you in return. They're like, no, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What? No, what?
Yeah.
No, it just blew my mind how much they, the mindset shifted from, as a team, let's do things.
There was a thing, it was, and I first heard of it not long after the pandemic, but called silent quitting, where basically you would
Mm-hmm.
go to work, but you just wouldn't do anything. And you would
Yeah,
just
quiet quitting.
quiet. That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also noticed that what offends people or what they feel, there was a movie recently about it. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but it was people sitting around talking about the worst thing they ever did. And two of them did some really bad things, but they got into a disagreement about which was worse. And the whole point of the movie was just that dialogue about what is important to people now. So Mindy, are you noticing anything when you're working with younger people, differences in what they think is important or how they run their businesses?
I do. I think there's a lot of social pressure and things that aren't necessarily true that are being fed to, the youngest generation that's coming out of college now. And that's that you'll never be able to afford a house. You're never going to, your parents bought a house for $70,000, blah, 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 right? But, that is true. But our salaries were also very low. And we scrimped and saved when we bought our house. We scrimped and saved to buy our house, and we scrimped and saved after. We weren't eating dinners out. We weren't doing things. Our lifestyle had to change to be able to afford the house. And then, once you're in the housing market, you can move up. And so I don't think that's being shared enough. There's just a lot of social pressure to say you're never going to make it, so why try? But on
Mm,
the other hand, I've always worked in very personal service businesses. So I always did have a lot of young people coming up. So in the aesthetic world and all of that. And there are some really great ones out there that are so excited about their business. And in those kind of businesses, they get more one-on-one time with, me or whoever is, working with them at the time. And so I think that helps. They get a lot of attention. But of course, there are some that just aren't, they're just not going to work out and their mindset is not right.
hmm
I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in my career in the 90s, and this is like hustle culture, hustle, hustle, hustle.
hmm
You're going to, and I always kind of made a joke of it saying, well, I'm working weekends, but it's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
hmm
And I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing that these younger people don't want to work all the time like maybe their parents, me included, did.
Right.
So I worked from home a lot, and so my children were with me, but they saw me really hustle.
hmm
And maybe they don't want to do it. Though my kids they're workers.
I also noticed after the pandemic that there was a lot of people that quit their full-time gig and then started working several smaller jobs. And that was when I think a lot of people came up with their own businesses and their own way to be able to do what they love. They say when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life.
Right.
And I think that has been a shift, definitely, with both men and women, seeing more people be able to follow their joy, so to speak, to, their passion. But one of the things that we always like to reinforce at Spirit Fest is that it's not always about dollars and cents.
Mhm.
It's not, don't look at what you earned or your profit at the end of the weekend, because a lot of times it's connections, it's new people that you've met, the networking like you do with the eWomen's Network. And then Susan, you did a fantastic business during the pandemic. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, I
Um,
did.
when did that start? Was it actually during the shutdown, or when did you notice the upsurge?
Sure. So I opened my online business, my website, and an Etsy shop 2017. So slowly building, slowly creating products, building momentum. But it was, just before the pandemic, and then it just skyrocketed. 7 times over my business increased. And it didn't taper for a good 16 months after that. And it was, for me, that was tremendous. I could not believe the success that I have. I was just strategically positioned at a time when the world needed a spiritual hub. I had a product or products that people found relevant, that they appreciated. So my little Etsy was going cha-ching, 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 like many times a day. And I was so blessed. And 16 months, it just kept going. I could not believe it. So now we're still at a good business pace, because I've picked up wholesale opportunities and just more marketing. So it's still good. But the pandemic, I just could not believe it. Like I never had downtime during the pandemic where I say this, I was blessed. I was so blessed with that. But I didn't have that staring at walls for weeks on end bored. I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. And that's what I say, like at Fort Myers, it was so unexpectedly busy. There was some vendors that nearly ran out of inventory the first day. And I said, well, sorry, you're so busy.
Yeah.
Mindy, was the pandemic also the catalyst for you to leave the business that you owned? Or tell us more specifically about your how you segued out of owning your salon to doing what you do now.
I think that the pandemic it showed some flaws in the liability of that business, right? We actually did decently well, but the employees didn't come back when they could come back. And so, revenue did not come back in the same way because the employees were still getting COVID money. And the way they looked at it is, well, when that runs out, I can get a job as an esthetician at another med spa. I don't have to come back here. So, it did expose some flaws in what could happen. And, people who are in business for ourselves, it's because we love it and we're driven to do that. It's not always because the margins are great in a particular business, and the med spa business is expensive to, brings in a lot of revenue but does not generate a lot of income or as much as you would think it would. So it was time for me to take that, it was time for me to move on from that. But I do want to just take a second to say about Spirit Fest. I had the opportunity to be there on, I believe it was the Saturday, and how fascinating it was, and a great job you did. Everything was so orderly and organized, and I was just looking at it of like, what an amazing business incubator this is. Like giving people this opportunity to make money from their businesses, and to have all of those clients coming in, all of those potential clients who were super friendly, super happy to be there. It was a great atmosphere, and I just loved it.
No, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you were there and that we were able to connect in that way too. But I always tell the vendors, the people don't come to see me, they come to see you guys. And
Right.
you know what all you guys have to offer, because it's just great. We have great vendors, practitioners, and the people that do the different things like the eWomen's Network. Not everybody's heard of it. So it's just a great way to, let people experience it and talk to people like you, that are involved with all of that. So we're almost time to go to break again. So Susan, tell us again the name of your website and where to find you.
My Enchanted Path. Or you can find me on Etsy. Look for shop myenchantedpath.etsy.shop. Charming items for an enchanted life.
And you can find Susan at all of our Spirit Fest events. The list is on our website, spiritfestusa.com. And Mindy, where can we find you?
You can find me at Million Dollar Brand Accelerator on Instagram, but I do have a coupon for people to have a complimentary consultation if they want. It's usually $297. So if your viewers want that, maybe we can put it in the show notes. My little adorable assistant just made a QR code for it. So,
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. Let's plan on that. We will put it on our social media sites. And then
okay.
also, if people, they can comment on the show or even call in. You can speak to the ladies, or you can actually speak to our producer if you've got a question or a comment too. So if anybody would like that right now, and doesn't want to wait, you can message us on either Facebook or through the Transformation Network site. So the Million Dollar Brand Accelerators on Instagram, you said?
Yes,
Okay, and then you've also got a page on Substack.
I do. It's called the IP Files.
The
IP
IP
like
file.
intellectual property, and it's all you can find it under my name.
Okay, all right. And then we're also connected on social media. I'm connected to all of the ladies on our social media posts, and then you can easily find them on Facebook and Instagram as well. So we're going to head into a few more breaks, and then we're going to be back for a last segment with more interesting conversation.
Hi, I'm Susan from My Enchanted Path, where I create divinely guided candles, intention oils, soaps, and more that make spiritual practice simple, no complicated rituals. The names may be playful, but every product is serious about helping you shift your energy. All fragrances are clean and safe, free from major toxins no one wants in their home or on their skin. With a 5-star rating and over 100,000 customers, MyEnchantedPath.com is a trusted source for charming items for an enchanted life.
Experience the healing magic of the Himalayas. Tibetan singing bowl classes and sessions are available at Kopali Inputs, which is located at downtown St. Petersburg, Florida.
Florida has a great new option for healthy living. Our Natural Health Expos were a hit last year, so 2026 brings more events around Florida. This special event offers health and wellness opportunities for people and pets. High-quality experts in well-being, healing, anti-aging, and natural living. Plus, you'll find speakers, demonstrations, and much more. All details, lists of locations, and discounted admission can be found at naturalwellnessexpo.com. Join us for Spirit Fest, coming soon to a city near you. Spirit Fest is a metaphysical, holistic, and crystal expo featuring an amazing array of vendors, speakers, authors, artists, crystals, healers, psychic readers, and more. Spirit Fest is your chance to explore and connect with others of like mind. Get all details, including our upcoming locations up and down the East Coast, also discounted admission, and more at spiritfestusa.com. Our next event is January 10th and 11th with special guests and special presentations, including psychic explorer, medium Mark Anthony, and also historical researcher, explorer, and author Jim Vieira. More details are coming to our website soon, and we look forward to seeing you at Spirit Fest in 2026. Welcome back to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit. We are having some really great conversation with some boss bitches. Here we all are. Very strong women who have created our own businesses, and we're discussing is it a compliment or not when we're called a boss bitch? I think it's a big compliment. and we're talking about how sometimes women are perceived a little bit differently than men in business, but we've got an interesting thing that I'm noticing is because Mindy helps people with her $1 million brand accelerator, and she does a lot of mainstream businesses, but a lot of times you're using intuition and you're using a lot of the body, mind, spirit principles that we use with Spirit Fest to do that as well. And same with Susan, that's literally your business is helping people use their intuition, in sixth sense kind of ways to be able to make their lives better as well. So I think that that kind of sets us apart from the corporate world. But we've all come from the corporate world. We've all worked for different people and had different experiences, which shaped us into the people that we are now. And we've seen how the perception sometimes between the men and women, or even the expectations, can be a little bit different. And about, that we might not be perceived exactly how we had intended in the past. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is asking for help and support in your business. And so it might not just be, hey, can you help me lift this, which is sometimes literal and sometimes not. But do you think that that's the same for men or for women also? What do you think, Mindy?
I think often women are concerned about asking for help or support because they're concerned about looking weak. Um, I have worked in primarily male businesses, primarily female businesses, and then businesses that are a mix of both.
Hmm.
And I think in the businesses that are primarily female, um, I left speech pathology when my daughter was young. She was sick, and it happened pretty abruptly, and I needed to replace my income. So I went to Mary Kay Cosmetics, ended up driving a pink Cadillac, and honestly,
Impressive.
I would not know anything about business if it wasn't for Mary Kay
Hmm.
because we were all independent, and the assistance that you could get, the knowledge people would freely share. Like there was no, we were all dependent on each other in that company. And so there was really no um, friction. We all wanted each other's units to, we
Hmm.
shared the units. They could go to meetings anywhere. We wanted everyone to succeed. It was a whole different story than sometimes male-dominated places where everyone has a job. It's very specific. It's not as cooperative. Um, I do think women can work in that, but most women cannot adapt to try to, if they try to get out of their feminine energy, they are lost in that situation, right? Because
Hmm.
you can't compete with all that male energy. And I think it becomes an advantage then when you can stay in your feminine energy, still have the same skills, but still have some communication skills that are a little bit different.
Hmm.
I think then that becomes a superpower. In fact, the Kathy Ireland show, I've been on it twice. And the second time they asked me to do a show of how you made it in a male-dominated world. And I
Hmm.
said, please, I don't want to do that because I think sometimes it's actually an unfair advantage to be a woman in, woman in a male-dominated situation because you just bring a calmer energy to that situation usually.
Right. Mary Kay is the front runner in teaching about women about sales and about how to be strong in
Absolutely.
business. And I remember reading the literature. I did it. I did it because it's a great product, first of all.
It is.
It still is. But she talked about putting on pantyhose and always making sure that you had polish on your nails and all of those things to set yourself ahead, to set yourself apart
Right.
from men and, always look your best. But she grew up in that same era where we had to work that much harder just to be able to, be perceived in the same way as men. So, if anybody is looking for good sales techniques, I definitely encourage people to check out Mary Kay.
Yeah,
What
she
was
has
her
an
last?
autobiography that's great.
What was her last name?
Ash, Mary Kay
Mary Kay
Ash.
Ash. That's right. But yeah, no, no, she was really awesome. So, uh, now that I've gotten off to Mary Kay, I forgot what the original question was. We were talking about what? I'm so sorry.
Women in men's businesses,
Yeah.
right?
So,
Isn't that what we're talking about?
yeah. Susan, what are your thoughts?
So I remember when I was a branch manager for a security company in Florida, and my vice president was, Susan, what kind of resources can we give you? What do you need? I'm like, I'm out here on an island. I'm fine. I don't really need anything. But when I did need something, I would go and I'd ask, and I knew
Hmm.
who to ask because there were some of the men in the leadership positions that weren't going to be forthcoming with sharing how I could be successful as a leader in the security industry. Like, how do I prep an event? How do I do this? How do I access, I need to build my sales. I got to close convention sales. And there were some of them that were going to be helpful, and others, and this isn't necessarily a male versus a female aspect. I just know that it's really an individual. Some people will help you and some people won't because they want to gatekeep and they don't want to
Hmm.
come together and bring the team up.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, I've never been shy to ask for help, even though I'm not screaming hysterically like the one boss thought it should sound like. Uh, yeah.
In when working from other people, never minded asking for help because I wanted to learn new things.
Yeah.
If there was something that I didn't understand, there was this program called SAP, and it would be something that like a giant conglomeration would use for all of their human resources to pay their bills, to pay their taxes.
Mhm.
And it is so not user friendly. I used to say it stood for slow and painful. And truly, it's a great thing, but when you only use it for one or two things, it was a lot to learn and it could be very overwhelming. So I just decided when things like that came up, I would just make friends with it. I would ask for the manual. Don't just show me how to do that one thing. I would
Yeah.
want the whole overview of things like that. So I never was afraid to ask for help. And if I was falling behind or something, whether it was, due to my own fault or not, I would just let people know. That was the very least. And I didn't really feel too bad about it. I would rather have people know, I guess, where I stood there. So, and again, going back to communities that we're building through the eWomen's Network, through Spirit Fest, that is one of the good things. And I know, Susan, we were talking about how beautiful your booth is. You have got some of the most clever ideas and design in your booth, and you freely share when people talk about your booth and things like that. You'll, help people, and that's the way that it should be, is
Yeah.
building community like that. So,
Yeah.
that's another thing that's really, I think, special about being a boss bitch is being able to help people. And, I don't know if you'd call that leadership or not, but it's just being supportive. And that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
really, is to help each other. Um, so let's see. Let's talk about standards. What we have certain standards with our business, and how can we make sure that people meet our standards without coming across in a way that might be perceived as overly lenient or without being too assertive. Mindy,
Yeah.
let's start with you.
That's a really hard one, and as I said, it hasn't always been my best skill. But over the years, when you have to diagnose the problem. So does the person not understand? Do they truly not understand? Do they not care? Is it out of their knowledge base? I've been working a lot with VAs in the Philippines, and it's really a good education for me because one of the things that they say, and I'm helping my VA start a VA agency, but one of the things that they're taught to say is noted. And if an employee says to you, noted, that sounds rude, right? But so it's those communication skills, and it's setting expectations, and it's creating boundaries,
Hmm.
and then it's following through. And that follow through part, there's the coaching part where you do try to be really supportive, and then there's the part where the rubber's hitting the road. we need to master this skill, especially in health and wellness, because I'm trusting my employees behind closed doors with hot things and sharp things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I need to know that they are holding that standard for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard. It's very hard to get that exact right tone. And I think we we stumble through it. I mean, if we're
Mm-hmm.
being honest, we stumble through it. And it really has to do with us and our development of our leadership skills, and it has something totally different to the way the person perceives it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it really is trial and error. I think you just have to learn best practices. You have to learn from your mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to win them all.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do use that term noted because given the circumstances, if you say okay, sometimes that signifies agreement. And sometimes it doesn't require an agreement, but sometimes that might be the perception. So when I have a communication, if there's a misunderstanding, I try to look at what I could have done to do different, I guess.
Right.
And that would be to say that something like that. And I admit sometimes it does come across very analytical. But just just a way. So okay, so and I did it again. Um where were we, Susan?
When you were eh, your delivery of your standards and what your
Yes.
expectations were.
Thank
Mindy
you.
pulled it together. She pulled it together very well. It's kind of person by person. You never know for sure how the delivery is going to land. So this is also something that I have struggled with over the year. I know I've lost staff to this, so I've really had to find the sweetness. And I found it, just to share in my experience, that if I gave them kind of the overview of the why, then it's less feeling like it's micromanagement. I come back to reiterate a part of the process or a standard that they kind of missed. You said, okay,
Hmm.
that label's, this would be me. That label's not quite right. Now, does that scream like that's a TJ Maxx product? Or does that feel like it could be on the shelf at Bloomingdale's? Like
Yes.
there's,
Right.
communicating standards and really helping them understand, I found made a difference.
You've also got standards though with public that you don't that never met. When people order on your Etsy shop,
Uh-huh.
you've got people that might kind of try to pull some things or that
Yeah.
might and so how do you do do you do a lot of chat GPT with your responses or how do you
So
communicate with
I
them when
am
you know?
I am not the best writer because I am very direct. Somebody will say, and I give them the benefit of the doubt. This arrived broken. I'm like, did it? It was wrapped in 4 layers of bubble wrap, and I know I put 6 layers of this. I'm like, there is no way. So I'm like, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's find a way to say yes, to support, to get on their side before I just, in my heart of heart, I know that they're just trying to rob me. And every once in a while, it's very blatant that they're trying to run a scam, and then I just call those out. I call a spade for spade. But yeah, it's usually just trying to get on their side and see how can I make them happy. If I were in their shoes and this happened to me, how would I report it? That's but no, there are quite a few. I call my GPT bot Lulu. I'm like, hey Lulu, make this sound nice for me because I'm not feeling any kind of nice. And then
Yes,
they give
you
me a phrase. Like,
actually
okay, yes, that's what I meant.
you gave me that advice once and I thought that that was really funny.
Yeah.
There was a vendor that was claiming they had gotten an email. No, that they had sent us an email asking for something and we did not get it.
Yeah.
And I asked them to please forward me the email, and it was really clear what they sent had been altered. It was not authentic in any way. So we had to reply to them and let them know that we weren't buying it, basically. And that was something that was good because I do like to write, but I'm also, again, very to the point. And we did ask for help with that. I remember
Yeah.
ChatGPT definitely did make it sound much nicer. But that's another example of standards and asking for help, all in the same thing. And I'm
Yep.
not a huge fan of AI, but we're learning to use it now. We're really figuring out where it can be helpful. And it's developing itself too. It's learning new things. I am noticing that it's pulling from what's already out there, and we're in specialized niches a lot. And so I have to be careful because if I ask it for enough ideas, I'm realizing it's pulling from other people with similar businesses to ours, and there's just not that many, so I can see where it's doing that. So, we're using it for reference, not anything else. I did know that they just did an upgrade with when you ask it to do flyers, it's now got all of this flourish and all of this information on it. If I have seen that once, I've seen it 20 times this week alone.
Yeah,
That
I saw
everybody's
somebody's
kind of,
website that was entirely chat GPT generated the other day. And it's fine, right? It's got to happen. They need to get their message out there. They resonated with it. Just, maybe they're just not good at graphic. But it
well,
just
it's
feels
not just the
inauthentic.
graphics, yeah, but a lot of the wording we can get from that, and just advice in general, because it does remember.
Mhm.
If you're okay with, them knowing all of your business, which I feel like they do now anyway, or not. Mindy, are your customers, your clients using a lot of AI?
We are. In fact, I make a super, super, super customized chatbot for them.
Mm.
So it's customized to them. It doesn't search the web. It has my frameworks in it. It has some of their frameworks in it, and it has a little bit of magic in it. And
Hmm.
that thing can write for them better than it can, let put it this way, it can write for me better than I write me if I sit down to do it really quickly. So I think AI is a tool. And I actually tell my clients when they're using that tool, I'm coaching them with the tool. So I have a totally done with you, I have a done with you product, and that's that product. And I have a done for you product. If you don't want to have the IKEA of coaching, meaning you have to put it together yourself, right? We have a bespoke done for you product. We set up your Kajabi, we pull out your frameworks, we pull out the best of what you have, the most monetizable, and then we spend the rest of that year monetizing and reiterating and maybe adding some more programs. But the mid-level program is AI based, and it's a tool. You can't outsource your business, yourself, your voice to anyone else.
Hmm.
And even if it comes out of that tool, I think it's going to be pretty factual. But is it going to necessarily say exactly what you want in the way you want? You
Right.
really need to look at it. You really need to make it yours. And you really need to take all those silly dashes out and words like actually out, because it puts the word actually in 50,000 times.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it
Noted.
does.
Noted.
And some other
It
words where
actually
you can
does.
really see that it's AI. So if you use it as a tool, if you let it write for you, it's just going to sound like everyone else. If
Yeah.
you let
Yeah.
any AI, they all have their own
We can
things.
100% tell when we get emails from people that are AI. And it's not uncommon that it'll be two or three paragraphs of AI, and then they'll put another paragraph at the bottom in their own words. And it's just even that much more obvious. And when
Right,
people do that, it just tells me that they may not really know what they're talking about. To me, it's not good when I see that. It's supposed to be a guide, I guess, AI,
right.
but it definitely is very. There's a lot of really good things that it could do, and that's why I encourage more people to see what it can do for them, not let it do the work for you, but to see for them too. So, all right, so
Marianne, I want to
we've
share
got
with
a
you.
what's that?
I want to share this one note about that. Is I was interviewing somebody once. Oh, okay. I thought I froze for a second. I was interviewing somebody for a management position, and they came in, they sat down, and their resume, I saw it beforehand. I'm like, I need to have a conversation with this person because their resume was very clearly generated, like AI generated with all of these words, and I'm like, there's no way that they understand half of what's in here. So the gentleman came in, he sat down, we had a good chat, and I said, can you tell me what this is? Can you tell me what this was that you said that you did? Blank face, no idea. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I was like a cat with a dead lizard, like playing a little bit, and maybe that was not the most ethical thing. But the point is, it's very clear when it's not your voice, when it's
Yes.
all generated, and it's like you said, Mindy, when it says actually in all of these intros and words that it's just not authentic, and they want to connect with you as a woman, as a business owner, as a person coming to a job.
From an esoteric standpoint, too, we cautioned the vendors early on, maybe 3, 4 years ago, when it first started becoming, when social media was offering to write it for you in AI. It takes out your energy of the words. Even if you wrote it and it rewrites your words, it does. It just takes that out. And I really do believe there's a vibration to it.
There is.
Yeah.
So
And that, go
I
ahead.
played with some of my labels on some of my products because I love the creative aspect of changing up the labels on my products. And so I went into Chat GPT and I said, create a label. Here's the inspiration. Like, here's what I'm using now. Create a version. And okay, I like this. And this was early, like when Chat GPT was just starting to generate for you. So I put it on some products. And wouldn't you know that those particular items slowed in sales?
Wow.
People just weren't as
Yeah.
receptive to it. So I'm like, okay, that's the proof in the pudding. Like, this is a great seller before, and now the last 3 shows or online sales have slowed down. I'm like, people,
Yeah.
there's definitely a vibration difference.
Yeah, yeah, no, I believe that. Ladies, we are just about out of time, and this flew by. Can you believe this was an hour and a half? This was great conversation. I cannot wait. So to let everybody know, they can watch this in replay on YouTube because we covered so many really great, important subjects. So before I do the closing message, Susan, where can they find you? What's your 2 websites?
Yep, you can find me on myenchantedpath.com, or you can find me on Etsy. If you look for the shop, My Enchanted Path.
And Mindy, what about you?
The easiest is Instagram at the $1 Million Brand Accelerator, or Substack at Mindy DiPietro, the IP files.
And you are going to get a code for a discount for a consultation, right? With the
Yes, I am. Can you put that in the show notes if I send it to you?
I will, and then we're also going to put it on your guest page on the Transformation Network. So if you have followed that link and they'll go to your guest page, we'll add it there as well. So
Okay, perfect.
yeah, I'm excited about that. And then again, you can message here too on Facebook. We'll find that before or after the show. So thank you, ladies, for being here. Our closing message: leadership is not about being loud, aggressive, or controlling. It's about having the courage to make decisions, the confidence to stand behind them, and the wisdom to see the people around you. Women do not need to be smaller, quieter, or more agreeable to be effective leaders. The most powerful leaders are those who know who they are, communicate with authenticity, and create opportunities for others to succeed along with them. And ladies, I know that you guys are the epitome of that, and you're great leaders and you're boss bitches. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I look forward to having more conversations in the future.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for spending this time with me here on the Sanctuary Network. Tune in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Transformation Network as we gather to share stories, wisdom, and practices that remind us of something essential. Sanctuary isn't just a place you go. It's a space you create in your heart, your home, and your daily life. I hope today's conversation sparked something in you, a sense of belonging, a new idea, or simply a reminder that you are not alone on this journey. If this touched you, please share it with someone who could use a little light. Together, we can grow this circle of sanctuary and inspire a ripple of healing around the world. And don't forget, the journey continues at spiritfestusa.com, thesanctuarynetwork.com, and naturalwellnessexpo.com. And of course, every week right here on Transformation Network. Until next time, may you be well, may you be inspired, and may you live fully in sanctuary.